Hi there, clarinetophiles. I'm going to talk about something that's a highly neglected subject. It's a subject I've touched a few times, but it's really worthy of discussing in lots of detail over several videos, and that is the practice of practicing long tones. You know, most clarinet players don't practice long tones. I remember when I used to give workshops, I would ask how many practice long tones each day, and I'd almost never get any hands at all. And then when I did get a hand, I would ask them how they practiced them, and their practice was totally inadequate, and they had no idea why they were actually playing long tones except trying to make their lips a little bit stronger, their embouchures a little bit more powerful. That's not a very good reason for practicing long tones. So, I'm going to talk about practicing long tones, and we're just going to touch on a few basic things in this video. First of all, one of the most important things in practicing long tones is to make sure you're always playing balanced reeds. Balanced reeds will facilitate your practice in a number of ways, but especially in terms of learning this equilibrium between air pressure and embouchure pressure, balanced reeds are absolutely essential. Playing unbalanced reeds will cause you to do unnecessary things behind your nose, cut your endurance down, and maybe even hurt you so that you end up biting your lip or doing something that actually puts you out of commission for several days and you lose several days of practice. So the first thing is to play balanced reeds. Now, if you can't balance reeds or you don't know how, then get my ATG reed finishing system, because it will teach you how to test for reed balance, and it will give you a method for almost infallibly balancing reeds well. This will help your practice a great deal. Now, what you're listening for, or what you're trying to achieve in practicing long tones, is not just strengthen the embouchure so you can play longer and longer. What you're trying to achieve is to get a sensitivity between the equilibrium of embouchure pressure, which is added by snugging, not by biting, and the air pressure and the response of the reed. And what you're listening for is your control over the sound and consistency in shape, consistency in color, as well as consistency in pitch stability. Pitch stability is very, very important. You know, if you bite to control the sound, then when you play louder, in order to get more sound, you relax your embouchure pressure, and that drops the pitch. And when you want to play softer, you add embouchure pressure, and that raises the pitch. Well, biting is so inadequate from many standpoints, but the instability in pitch, the great variation in low to high, that is flat to sharp, when you're using biting to control the dynamics, that really messes you up, really something bad. Okay? But when you're snugging, when you play softly, to add pressure, you actually snug a little firmer against the lips than you would if you're playing in a fuller dynamic range, and this pushes the tip of the reed past the pressure point and helps stabilize the pitch. So as you play softer and softer and use less and less air compression, the pitch itself doesn't rise nearly as much. And same when you're playing loud, you're still using the snugging pressure, the jaw is down, and as you increase your air, you can stay nice and snug and stabilize the pitch so it doesn't sag when you're playing louder. So it's very important to notice in your dynamic changes when you're playing long tones how stable the pitch is. And that's why while you're playing the long tones, a tuner is very, very significant. You want to, of course, play a note, and it'll always be a little sharp when you first attack it, but when it stabilizes and gets in pitch, as you increase your dynamics and decrease your dynamics, it's extremely important to try to do behind your nose what's needed to do, and do by snugging with the thumb rather than biting with the jaw, to do whatever is necessary to do to try to stabilize the pitch as much as possible from when you're playing from loud to soft or soft to loud. So that's a very good thing to practice. Consistency in pitch. And then there's also the consistency in color, and color tends to brighten when you play louder, and it also tends to kind of get pinched or kind of dull when you're playing softer, just as the sound tends to the shape of the sound tends to shatter when you play louder, and then it gets very tight and constricted when you play softer. Again, you're looking for consistency in three things when you're playing dynamics: pitch, color, and shape. All these things are very important. So using a tuner and especially listening with your ears, very, very important. Now, one of the other things that you're listening for is in playing long tones is control of the sound and shape of the sound. So you're listening to the sound to come together and focus extremely well. And you do this by finding the sweet spot when you snug, so the sound will come right together and focus really well. If you snug too much mouthpiece in your mouth to try to get more freedom, then the sound will start to spread on the other end and you'll lose control. One of the very important things when you're playing slow intervals as part of your long tone exercise is to make sure that certain notes are stable. For instance, the throat A, and the A above the staff, and the E above the staff. All three of those notes tend to be rather unstable notes. So, for instance, if you can play an exercise like from E, clarinet E to A, F to A, G to A, and A to A, then and play it very slowly, and all the notes have the same color, have the same shape, have the same dynamic level, then you're right in that sweet spot, so you have control of all your pitches in the first and second register. Another thing is when you can slur from E above the staff, from A above the staff to E above the staff. Learning how to slur that so the high E is controlled, or attack the high E very, very softly, and have the E be stable rather than cracking and shattering up to a high A or to a higher overtone. Those are good points that tell you that you're in the right spot in terms of actually controlling the sound. And the equilibrium between embouchure pressure and air pressure is a very fine equilibrium that gives you control really over the first two registers and the bottom half of the third register. So those are terrific exercises to work on, and let me recommend that you do that. The other thing that you want to do is you want to increase your efficiency of the length of notes. And that means to time yourself to see if you can hold notes longer and also keep the sound steadier in terms of dynamic levels. So learn to play a pianissimo, for instance, and hold it out for 35 or 40 seconds and hold it at that exact dynamic, no louder. And you can actually use some kind of a sound program on a computer to check, because if you increase your dynamic, the sound program will show that in increased waves. So it'll help your stability. It'll help you visually see what you're doing in terms of the sound, so you can hear a little more accurately. So just like we use the tuner when we're playing dynamics to see how we're doing in terms of pitch stability in very sensitive ways, we can see how much control we really have over dynamic levels by looking at some recording program and looking at the sound waves that are being recorded on it. So those are things that will electronically help you, but there's no substitute for really learning to listen. These are just aids to learn. But eventually you reflexively become very, very critical in terms of what you feel behind your nose and what you're hearing. And remember, in practicing long tones or anything else, the worst single thing you can do is bite. But let me recommend that you take some of these suggestions that I've made and begin integrating as a daily habit practice of long tones and slow intervals to gain control over the dynamics and to stabilize the color and shape of your sound. It will improve everything you do on the clarinet. And that's pretty much it. I think it's plenty enough. Go practice. If you don't know how to balance your reeds, you might want to drop by our website and pick up a copy of the ATG system. There's no better or easier or quicker method for balancing reeds than the ATG system. All materials in this presentation are the property of Southern Star Clarinet Enterprises Incorporated and may not be reproduced without express permission from the author. Thanks for watching.